Okay, the last page. Okay, this one's a little different because it's got a chart instead of a graph. So if you want to, and I'm not going to give you one with 4 at the same time on the test, but I mean, it's good practice, if nothing else. So if I were you, first thing I would do is I would figure out which one is which. All right, this one has nothing on it special, no squared, no cubed. It's not in the denominator. It's got no exponent, nothing along those lines. So this is just that's a line. So y equals mx plus b. So f of x is linear. So that's linear, and I would label this line. Okay, g of x. Well, that one's the squared. Okay, so that one is quadratic. Okay, so you can remember that's quad. So whenever you're looking at the g of x function, anytime you're looking at this line, you realize, oh yeah, that's the quadratic. I go to that column on my cheat sheet. H of x, well, this one has the bars. So let's do that in green. This one is the absolute value. So I'm going to put, just label it. I'll put abval. Why not? And last but not least, this one, oh, it's got the cube. Therefore, this one must be cubic. Put it a big C. Let's go back to the orange. That's for cubic. Or if you want to do them like this, that's fine. If you want to go x to the third, that's my cubic. That's fine. However you label this to recognize that's the cubic function. Cubic. Alright? That is fine, because you need to be able to know what these are. Alright? So first things first, which one of these has a domain that is not all real numbers? So check them all. That one's all real numbers, that one's all real numbers, that one's all real numbers, that's one all real numbers. So the answer is none. They all have all real numbers. Okay, which functions have the same range? Okay, that one's going to be a little trickier, so you need to find the range of all these ones. Alright? So the L, the linear and the cubic, just glance at those real quick and you realize, oh, those are both all real numbers. So f of x and k of x, f of x and k of x are both all real numbers. Okay? But you'll go a step further and you'll realize, wait a minute, these ones are both opening down. Okay? And they both have a d value of 2. So, go away, National Geographic. You can say g of x and h of x are from negative infinity up to positive 2. Okay? So these two have the same range, and these two have the same range. Oh, well, I answered 23 and 24 at the same time. 23 says, which ones have the same range? Well, F and K do, and then G and H do. And then the next questions asks, what are they? So it's a bit of a redundant question, but whatever. You just answered it. Okay? Let's keep moving. Let me pause this for just a second and figure this out. Alright, so here we go. I got the table over here to the right, so we can all look at the same time. What are the x-intercepts? And what functions share an x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept is where x is 0. So that would be everything on this column. So all 4 of them are different. So you can just start listing. You got to list all 4 of them out. So f of x is at negative 6. Oh, that's y-intercepts. I'm losing my mind. My bad. Let's go back and try this again. Dun, 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 dun. X-intercepts. Okay, x-intercept is when y is 0. I'm sorry. So there's a y is 0. 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 So they're kind of all over the place. So just start listing them out. F of x has an x-intercept at 3, 0. Again, you can just say, hey, remember, this is 3, 0. That's g of x, 3, 0. G of x has one at 3, 0, and 5, 0. Okay? The one way to read this chart, remember, this entire thing is the x-coordinates for all of these, all 4 of those functions. Okay? So it's f of x is at 3, 0. G of x is also at 3, 0, but it's also at 5, 0. I'll put an and sign there. H of x, okay, h of x has 2. One at negative 3, 0, and one at negative 1, 0. Alright. H of x is at negative 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. And last but not least, k of x has one at negative 3, 0. Alright, and say which ones share an x-intercept. You can either look at the chart, the things you just wrote down, or you can say, well, h and k share 1, and f and g share 1. So, h of x and k of x, and f of x and g of x. Those all share which columns? X-intercepts. Alright, the next one. Do any of the functions share a y-intercept? So this is the one where we say x is 0, so let's look at that column. And you'll notice they're all different. So the answer is no. So in this case, we've got to list them all. F of x is at 0, negative 6. G of x is at 0, negative 30. H of x is at 0, negative 2. And k of x is at 0, 54. Cool. So here we go. K intersects what other function twice? So we're looking for where does this intersect another function, and you'll notice that it shares with h right here and right there. At these x coordinates, they have the same y coordinates. So k of x intersects h of x. Now, if you couldn't find that on the table, you could always just graph these things on your calculator and look at it, and that's fine. But that's where they intersect, where the y values are the same at the same x value. They both have the points. They both have the points negative 3, 0, and they both have the points negative 2, 2. All right, that's where they intersect. So let's do this. The next one asks, are there asymptotes? Well, the only graphs with asymptotes are rationals and exponentials. Do we have any rationals and exponentials? Go look at your graphs, your equations up there. There's nothing with x in the denominator. There's nothing with x as an exponent. So the answer is no. There are none. Which functions have a maximum or minimum? Okay, so go down your list. F of x is linear, so f of x has none. G of x is quadratic, so g of x has a max or min. And you realize, oh, it's got an a of negative 1. So again, let me write f of g of x real quick. It's got that a of negative 2 times x minus 4 squared plus 2. Alright, so the two things you got to look at. You got to look at the a value, so that means it's negative, so it opens down. and the d value is 2. So that means it's right there at 2. That's the highest it gets. So g of x has a max at y equals 2. Alright, so that's g of x. H of x is absolute value. I have no idea what that noise is in the background. If you're hearing that, I apologize. You can laugh with me. Let me write it real quick. And again, same idea. We're looking at the a value is -2, so it opens downward. And the d value is 2, so that's where its maximum point. So h of x also has a max. So I can say h of x and g of x have a max at y equals 2. If they weren't the same, I'd have to list this section. And number 30 asks the exact same question. Which function has a maximum or minimum? Yeah, that's a typo. Whatever. So we're done.